You may have seen the bee humming technique all over the internet lately. People claiming that increases nitric oxide, lowers your blood pressure, calms your nervous system, improves sleep, and even improves brain function and metabolism. But how many of those claims are actually true? And what does the research actually show? So today I'm going to break this down clearly. I'll show you what humming can realistically do in the body, which is still pretty amazing, even if all the claims are not true or exaggerated. And I'm going to show you a simple 3-minute routine in addition to the humming that stimulates nitric oxide throughout the entire body. I've spent the last 30 years studying natural longevity strategies that are simple, practical, affordable, and well-researched. So let's take a clear look at how these techniques actually work and what claims are supported. First of all, research has shown something fascinating about humming. When you hum while you exhale through your nose, nitric oxide levels in the nasal passages increase by as much as 15 times compared to normal breathing. So that's pretty exciting. This nitric oxide comes primarily from the paranasal sinuses, which are actually one of the body's richest natural sources of nitric oxide. So when you hum, you activate the sinus ventilator, so to speak, releasing nitric oxide into your airways, and it moves in the nasal passages and into your lungs, where it can do a lot to support airway dilation and oxygen exchange. So the increase in nitric oxide from humming is real, but it is primarily occurring in the upper airway and respiratory systems. So that's important for many people, but that doesn't do systemic nitric oxide. It is not the same thing as increasing nitric oxide throughout your entire circulatory system. There are other ways to do that, which we're going to talk about. That distinction is important. Now, humming also does something else that may be just as important. It stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of the major regulators of our parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of the nervous system that's responsible for rest, sleep, recovery, digestion, stress regulation, and the vibration from humming stimulates branches of the vagus nerve in the throat and around the ear canal at the same time. As we hum and we naturally lengthen the exhale of our breath, along with the vibration, that stimulates this parasympathetic system and helps shift the body out of a stress response. So when vagal tone, this is called vagal tone, and I'll refer to it that way. When the vagal tone improves, people often experience things like slower heart rate, improved heart rate variability, which is a good thing, gives better stress resilience, improves their digestion, and can improve sleep. So several studies on these breathing practices that include humming show improvements in the heart rate variability, which is a very strong marker of this vagal activity and our stress resilience. So humming is really working two different mechanisms: the nitric oxide release in the airways and activation of the vagus nerve. And recently, there's been a lot of interest in vagus nerve stimulation devices, and patients have asked, should I buy one? Is it worth it? And some of these medical devices are used for conditions like epilepsy or treatment-resistant depression, so that sounds pretty good. But others are consumer devices that stimulate the vagus nerve through the ear or through the neck. And some early research suggests these devices may help with things like migraine, stress regulation, and heart rate variability. But I love people to understand that the vagus nerve can be stimulated naturally so easily with practices like humming, chanting, slow breathing, meditation, singing, and even certain yoga techniques can activate the same parasympathetic pathways. So for many people, these natural approaches may provide more meaningful benefits without needing to purchase a device. What you might notice when you begin practice humming, the first changes are often actually pretty quick. So within minutes, you might notice a calmer breathing, a sense of relaxation, clearer nasal passages to sleep better. Actually, to sleep better at night, sometimes people get clogged in their nasal passages, and a quieting of your mind. And those effects are primarily related to the vagus activation and slow breathing. With consistent practice over time, weeks later, you're going to notice better stress resilience, so things are not going to bother you as much, improved sleep, improved autonomic balance. I'm going to demonstrate how you correctly do the humming technique, and you're going to start by just taking a few deep breaths. Close your eyes and be sitting or lying down. And then take a deep breath and breathe out slowly through your nose while you start to hum. And you can hold it for as long as feels comfortable for you. And you're going to do it for somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes is what's recommended. I usually do 6 minutes. So nitric oxide in the whole body is a little bit different, and it gets confused online. Nitric oxide released during humming, mainly in the sinuses and airways, but nitric oxide that improves circulation through the entire body is produced in a different place and in a different way. It's produced in the endothelial cells that line our blood vessels all throughout our entire circulatory system. And these cells produce nitric oxide, which causes the blood vessels to relax, and that's what can improve your circulation and oxygen delivery throughout the entire body. So one of the strongest triggers of this type of nitric oxide is movement. This is especially important because when you spend a long periods sitting, it only takes 3 hours of sitting for the blood flow in your legs to drop by as much as 50%. That's huge. So during prolonged sitting, the arteries temporarily lose some of their ability to dilate properly. And this happens because the nitric oxide signaling decreases when the muscles are inactive. So the encouraging news, though, is that even short bursts of movement can restore that circulation and that nitric oxide production in very short period of time. So we're going to do a 3-minute nitric oxide routine, and this is where a simple 3-minute routine can be very helpful. So think of this as a circulation reset as opposed to a nervous system reset. It activates the same nitric oxide signaling that occurs during exercise. So here's the routine. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is called air squats, which is just using your own body weight to do squats, like such. And you can go down as far as is comfortable for you, which may be half of what I just did, or you can go down further. Whatever you can do, that is very important. All right, the second one is arm circles. So you're just going to do your arms, and you can go one direction and you can go another direction, 30 seconds each. Okay, after you do arm circles, you're going to do push-ups in the air, just moving your arms up and down. You're just getting that circulation going in your arms. And you do that for 30 seconds. The fourth one are step backs. So you're just going to step back and go down. You don't have, like I said, you don't have to go too far down, or you can go all the way down. Whatever feels more comfortable to you. Do it in as fast as you can. And I'm doing it slow now just to demonstrate, but just do it where you feel balanced. You're going to do each of those 4 exercises for 30 seconds each, and then rest for a second, take a breath, and then do the same routine over again, those 4 exercises. The whole thing should take 3 minutes approximately. Okay, so this routine is especially useful in the morning, after long periods of sitting, during travel when you don't have time to do a full workout. And if you already exercise regularly, your workouts are already stimulating the nitric oxide in your blood vessels, and that is probably sufficient. But this short routine can still be helpful as a quick circulation reset during sedentary periods. All right, so short-term versus long-term results. In the short term, people may notice things like your hands warm up, improved circulation, a mild increase in energy, and those changes come from this increased blood flow. Okay, that's the short term. Over long term, practices that repeatedly stimulate nitric oxide signaling can support healthier blood vessels, improve your circulation, better vascular function overall. So we're talking about, possibly helping with blood pressure issues, things like that. So putting it all together, these two practices work in different but complementary ways. So humming helps regulate your nervous system and stimulate vagal tone. Short bursts of movement stimulate nitric oxide in the blood vessels throughout your body and improve circulation. So together, they're supporting two major systems that influence healthy aging. That's why they work so well together. Simple practices like this may seem small, and you're talking about 10 minutes in a day, but the signals we send our biology every day have powerful influence on how we age. So if you're looking for a more personalized approach to hormone balance and anti-aging, I'd love to invite you to join our Holistic Anti-Aging School. You'll find the link below.